Okay. So let me just keep working towards preparing you to finish this 6 weeks. And I think this is recording, and I think I'll have some kids joining eventually. So your first assignment from the medieval age is to take really good notes on page 25 to 34, which is the history. Now I'm going to add to that assignment. And the grade I'm going to give you on this is going to be part of your folder grade, which will be due next Thursday. But I'll give you class time to work on it. So added to page 34, I want you to take real simple notes on page 35. So if you have your book, page 35 is the introduction to ballads. So what you should know about them is that they're folk songs, and that some of them have to do with domestic issues like get up and bar the door. Some of them have to do with romantic relationships like Barbara Allen. And the one I'm going to just tell you about has to do with historical events. So, you know, there will be a few questions on your multiple choice test, but that's going to be 2 weeks away. So don't worry about that. I'm just letting you know what you need to know for next week. So the third ballad, I'm not going to take time to read it to you now. We might come back to it, but I don't think so. But it's on page 38. So you do not have to take notes on the ballads. But the one on 38 is called Sir Patrick's Spoon. And Sir Patrick is a captain of a ship, and he's very respected. He really is able to go out in rough weather, and he has a very good crew. So a king from Norway wanted to find a good captain to go and get his bride from Scotland. And someone recommended, Sir Patrick said, he's the best person if you want to get her here safely. So the ballad is about him getting a letter saying, you must go and get the Scottish princess to marry the King of Norway. And he's upset because he realizes a storm is coming. So there's this line in which he says, oh, who is this had done this deed and told the king of me to tell us, to send us out at this time over the year to sail upon the sea. Ah, make ready, merry men all. Our good ship sails the morn. Now ere like my master dear, I fear a deadly storm. So he's telling his man, the king has ordered us to go, but I'm afraid of it. I wouldn't go if it was just for money. So it turns out that the ship does go down at sea, and all of his men and the royalty die. And it ends with the scene of the women waiting for their sailor husbands and boyfriends and sons to come back. So this is one of the type of ballads that is historical, tragic events. And it's a pretty one. I've actually heard it sung, but I think we've spent enough time on the ballads. Now, page 39 is a little bit more information about the ballads. And as I've said before, it's always wise to read the questions. If you read the questions, you'll kind of get an insight into what you are expected to understand. Okay, so go ahead. Here comes Dan. Okay, so go ahead and turn to page 40. Now, page 40, 41, and the top of 42 is the biography of Geoffrey Chaucer. And with your history notes, I want you to take notes on this man. He's the second most famous writer in the history of England. Only Shakespeare is more important. He's the king. He's actually called the father of English literature, so hugely important. He's called the father of the short story, father of the novel. I've even heard him called the father of psychology, because he describes characters and stereotypes of individuals. And he's so good at it that people sometimes explain what somebody is like by using a Canterbury character. I'll give you an example. There's a woman called the wife of Bath. who's very loud and offensive and rude and big. And I remember we had a teacher here years ago who was talking about college, and she said she loved college, but she really didn't like the roommate she was assigned her first year. So I was just asking her, why? What was she like? And she said, have you ever read the Canterbury Tales? And I said, oh yeah, I teach them every year. And she said, well, think of the wife of Bath. And I immediately knew that the woman she had to share an apartment with was loud and crude, told dirty jokes, made her feel uncomfortable. So these characters are just woven into our culture, like they just describe almost every type of personality. So it's really helpful to know them. You can't say you are educated in British literature unless you really grasp the Canterbury Tales. It's huge. So what I want you to know about Chaucer is that he was a very famous person while he was alive. He was very accomplished. He worked in government. He, okay, now it says 2 more people are waiting. Let me see if I can bring them in. Admit all. Okay, yeah. Okay, so take notes on page 40, 41, and 42, and pay attention to his political positions, and pay attention to his importance for the English language. He was the first author who wrote in Middle English. Most educated people still wrote in French or Latin. So it was a big deal that he wrote the Canterbury characters. So, yeah.
Which pages we have to notes on?
Okay, so you take the 25 to 34, and then you go to page 40. Oh yes, and 35 is about ballads, and then you turn to page 40. And yes. This will be, yes, this will be due next Thursday. When I collect your folder, I sure hope I'm doing this right. Well, I guess it's being recorded, so either way, when I collect your folder, if your notes are thorough, you get 2 advantages for a good folder. Number 1, you get a bonus 100. And number 2, if it's correct, I also drop your lowest grade. Or if there's something you didn't do, I'll drop that. So it's huge. If you don't do a folder, you get a 0 averaged in. So next to a major test, your folder is kind of your best way to bring your grade up. Okay, so remember yesterday I told you that the king's best friend was made Archbishop of Canterbury. And the king's reason for doing that is so he would have more control over the church, because the church was more powerful than most kings at this time. So he thought, my friend's in charge of the church, I'm in charge of the government, therefore I'm in charge of everything. But Becket disappointed him, and he had him murdered. Now the murder of Thomas Becket happened in 1170, and it's a real important historical date for England. English school kids all know what happened in 1170. The Archbishop was murdered. So why don't one of you come up and be sure I haven't, yeah, you come, Lalo, and see, to be sure everyone is, does this mean that they are all able to hear?
Yes.
Okay.
They're all muted.
Okay, good, okay.
Yeah, don't worry, we're mute.
Okay, no, that's fine. And in a little bit, I'm going to let you talk to your classmates here, and then I'll take another 30 minutes to answer questions for you guys. So it's also being recorded that way. If there's something you don't understand, I think you can go back and listen to it. So that's good. Okay, so the murder of Archbishop Thomas Becket made this cathedral a holy place, like the Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City. Religious people will go there, and they will go and ask for forgiveness for things. They will go and ask for healing. It's considered a holy site. And next to the Basilica, probably Canterbury is one of the most famous ones. People come from all over Europe, and they will walk a distance to get there. They don't usually just drive up to the cathedral. They plan to spend a couple days on their journey there. It's part of the ritual. So the Canterbury Tales is the story of a pilgrimage. And a pilgrimage is a walk for spiritual purposes. So this group of people meet at this inn, a tavern, and they realize that they're all going to take the several-day walk to get to the cathedral to pray. So the host and the barkeeper says, listen, why don't we just all go together? It'd be more fun. And they come up with this plan that as they walk, why don't they like share stories? And as they camp around the campfire at night, let's share stories. So the group of people decide, since we're going to be together for so many days, let's each tell 2 stories. It can be a story we know, or we can make up a story. So the Canterbury Tales are those stories. Now, Chaucer meant to write 124 of them, but he died after he finished 24. So people for hundreds of years have tried to write Canterbury Tales, added to them, but his are very unique. And what's neat about his tales is that he matches them to the person who is speaking. For example, the one we will read is called The Pardoner's Tale. Now, the pardoner is a church official that has the right to sell indulgences or sell forgivenesses. He has documents from Rome. So he can say, if you give me some money, I will give you this document and your sins will be forgiven. So if you die, you'll go to heaven. So that's a huge power if you believe that sort of stuff. So his personal sin is greed. He is a greedy man. He wants to get money. He's a manipulator. So his story is about greedy people. His story is about sin, but he uses the story to shame the audience. Like he ends the story saying, you better all watch out, because if you're greedy, you'll go to hell like these greedy people in my story. But see, it's, it's kind of paradoxical. Like he is using a story about greed to satisfy his own greed and to manipulate people. So every one of the stories is like that. You get introduced to the character, like the knight, and you see what he's like, and then you hear his story. And you get introduced to like the wife of Bath, and then you hear her story. She's a wild woman. She's been married 5 times, so he builds on what he's told you about the people. Now, that kind of story is called a frame story, when there is a story with stories inside of it. And only a few authors have done it. Like the Tales of the Arabian Nights is that type of a story. There is one book, I remember reading it back in college. It was called The Illustrated Man. And in this story, 2 men meet on a trip and they decide to camp together. And one of the men is covered with tattoos. His body's just covered all the way from his chin down. And the man he is camping with starts studying the tattoos, and the tattoos sort of come to life and he gets sucked into the story. It's a very fantasy things. But the Illustrated Man is a frame story. So the frame is pilgrims going to Canterbury, and then the tales are inside of that frame. Okay, so spend some time on this biography. The date you should associate with it is the date he died. 1400 he died. So Becket was killed 1170. 1400 he dies. He's still writing them when he dies. So we're talking about, what is that, 320 years? 220 years? 220 years. Yeah, 220 years. Yeah, so that means there have been pilgrimages going on that long. I should say, Arlen, is that right? Okay, so then on page 42, turn to page 42. I'm going to read you this introduction because there's some things that are said. The man who published this book, his name is Priestley, J.B. Priestley, and he's really a good writer himself. So it's one of the reasons I make you read the biographies is because they're really well written. And the discipline of reading them and taking notes on them will really improve your English skills if you give it a chance to. Like he's very, very talented. So from the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. So the prologue is the introduction. And most students used to have to memorize the prologue back in my days. Like that's a thing I was giving to you when it says, Vanar Abriel with the Shodra Sota. This is page 43. The Drat of March at Pirtha til Ruta and Bethet Eviden and that part of it, people always had to memorize. It was just, you know, my mom memorized it. I memorized it. None of my kids memorized it. You know, so it drained out. So follow along with me, page 42. Entering the world of Geoffrey Chaucer through the Canterbury Tales is rather like standing in front of a splendid medieval painting or Florentine fresco. Painted in bright colors against a glowing background, the knight, the prioress, the monk, the pardoner, the wife of Bath, and the rest of the Canterbury pilgrims move in perpetual sunlight, like processional figures winding uphill into the blue distance. Now that's just beautiful prose. I mean, describing characters as a painting in medieval art is really beautiful. You know, it means that they're so well described, you just feel like you see them, you know them, you're with them, which is actually true. In the prologue to his masterpiece, Chaucer, with a brisk flourish, paints the setting of his story and then proceeds to introduce his cast of characters, from the knight to the host of the Tabard Inn. I actually got to go there. The first time I went to England, like I had this list of things I wanted to see, and they were all connected to literature. You know, I wanted to see the Tabard Inn, and it's still there. You know, you can still go there. And in England, the taverns or the bars are where people eat. Like in America, some restaurants might serve wine or beer or something, but there are places where people just drink and places where people just eat. But in England, it's more like every place people can have a drink with their food, or you take children into pubs. So it's really different. Like the first time I took a group of kids there, I thought, okay, what do I do? You know, every place is a pub. And the pubs are the most historical places. So there's a little sign over it that says this is where the Canterbury characters met. Of course, it's probably been rebuilt, but in his role as narrator, Chaucer maintains throughout an air of personal detachment. His appreciation of the individuality of his character affords an honest and objective account of each of them. Indeed, at times it's difficult to determine whether he tends to commend or reprimand. So well does he blend satire with faint praise. Now that's significant because when you take your multiple choice test, one of the pages quotes things from the characters and says, what does Chaucer really think of this person? And, you know, you have to really be insightful to get it, because he might talk about someone being really ungodly, and then he'll say afterwards, like, what a great priest. Well, he's being sarcastic, of course, but it's possible to read through it and think, wow, so he thinks that's okay. So he really is ironic and satirical and mocking, and, you know, so it's like this higher level of understanding than when you start seeing his personality. And that's true of any great writing. Like you read it because you want to experience it and learn, and, you know, for the benefits you get. But then when you start getting this connection with the author, it just makes it so much more wonderful when you start having favorite authors because you get the way they see things. There's a great quote in a movie about C.S. Lewis. One of his students tells him, like he says, you know, Lewis said to the student, like, you know, why do we read? And he says, we read so that we know we're not alone. And I've thought about that a lot. You know, it's another way to connect as a human being, you know, with a story. Stories are important. Okay, so in this broad panorama of human nature, The poet reveals what is base. Base means low, bad, ungodly, noble, righteous, and essentially human in man. And just his little weirdnesses and mistakes. In the version of the prologue given here, and the reason I say given here is this has been well translated many, many times. And there's many what are called abridged or edited or shorter versions. All the books published after this one kept deleting more stuff. This is more than you get in most high school books. And then this, see, this is the full version. And I have it in both the original Middle English, and then this is a very modernized one, which is easier to read too. Okay, in the version here, Chaucer's description of his most memorable pilgrims are presented in their entirety. So this is a complete one. There's a couple of the characters that they chose not to include, but I think they chose the 15 best. Note that the first 42 lines of the prologue are given in the original Middle English. That's what I just read to you, with a modern English translation supplied in smaller type in alternative lines. As you read, notice the similarity between the two forms of the language. So this is your best possibility of understanding how Old English evolved into Middle English and how much closer Middle English is to modern English. English is not called modern English until the time of Shakespeare. So Old English is the time of Beowulf, Middle English is Chaucer, and modern English is Shakespeare. But Shakespearean English, which is King James Bible type English, is still difficult. It still has all the these and thous, and it's hard for someone whose language, first language isn't English, to follow it, because so many words have even changed. In reading Chaucer's prologue in the original Middle English, remember that you are, after all, reading English, and that most of Chaucer's words either have not changed in spelling or are close enough to their modern equivalent to cause little or no trouble. Most of the consonants are pronounced just as we do those in modern English. Okay, so they give a little pronunciation, and the last paragraph says, once you try reading the prologue aloud, you will soon become accustomed to Middle English. So if you want to try, you know, it's kind of cool. Maybe if someone wants to memorize the first like 4 lines, I'll give you bonus points or something.
How much if I memorize
The whole thing, like all of page 43? Oh, I'll give you like 105.
it?
Yeah, a bonus, yeah. If you can get...
Did I memorize it in Middle English?
Yeah, it has to be in Middle English. And there are tons and tons and tons of things on YouTube that show you the exact pronunciation. Like you just listen to it. When we learned it, we didn't have anything to listen to. We just had to learn it phonetically. So, okay, so let me go ahead and start reading to you, not the Middle English, but the actual English. So it starts out with the introduction, which Chaucer uses to tell what you're getting into. You know, he tells, this is why I'm writing it. Then he tells, these are the people who travel together. And then he says, these are their stories. So that's what the Canterbury Tales do. Okay, I gotta tell you one more story and then I'll behave. So when I was first in England, as I started to tell you, like every place I went had to be English related. I went to William Shakespeare's house. I went to his wife's house. I went to the Lake District where the Romantic poets all lived. And one of my things was I wanted to see where Chaucer was buried. I went to Wordsworth's grave too. Oh, so good. So I went to Chaucer's, but Chaucer's, like in England, they bury people underneath the floor of cathedrals. So Chaucer is part of the Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey. And Westminster Abbey is just astonishing. Just Google it. It's just, it's so amazing. So, so I was real excited. And back then, you know, no one had cell phones. So I had a movie camera with, I think it's, what do they call those? It's a VSH. Is that the old VHS? I always get my capital letters mixed up. VHS. Okay, so I had kind of a big one. And there were signs that said no photography. So when I saw no photography, it went in my mind like, well, for some reason they don't want flash, because flash might either disturb people who are in the cathedral for spiritual reasons, or I'd read someplace that some of the tapestries, they try to keep them in dark. So this is how I justified it. So I thought my little camera that I was holding down here would be okay. So, but maybe I didn't think that. Maybe I just thought I could get away with it. I forget, it was a long time ago. So I was coming into the Poets' Corner and I started seeing all these names, my heroes, and I was real excited. So I had my camera and I turned it on. So I was talking to my students like, oh, look at this, Chaucer's grave. And, we were having a little like which ones we had read and who they were and stuff. And this little old lady saw me from across the church. And she probably was close to 80. She wasn't 5 feet tall. She was just this little boxy lady in her blue uniform. And she started running across the plaza saying, turn off your camera. And I actually at first didn't know she was talking. You must leave, turn off your camera. And of course, in a really heavy British accent. So I was kind of enjoying watching her, wondering who she was going after. And wow, she's so riled up. And she came right up to my face and, I see. So I took my camera up so I could get her because she was just so cute. And it's like one of my favorite videos is her, like I'm going to take it away if you don't turn it off. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. No, you're not sorry. And she was really emotional. It was really like a big deal to her. Sort of like this was a secret silo where there were military, weapons, and I was going to sell them to the enemy or something. Anyhow, so it's a very short video, but it's I do still have it because I never throw away anything. It's someplace in a box. My poor kids, when I die, the things they're going to have to decide whether they look at or just dump. It's going to be hard. But I hope someone finds that and posts it because she's a cutie. Okay, page 43. Okay, so we're ready. When April, with his showers have pierced the drought of March with sweetness in the very root, and flooded every vein with with liquid power, that of its strength engendereth the flower. So he's saying in England, usually March is kind of a dry season, but April is a rainy season. And it's usually in April. It's part of like the Feast of Tabernacles celebration, Easter celebration, that people usually go on pilgrimages. So he's saying the rains have come and flowers have started to bloom. And that's when people usually go. And these references, you don't really need to know the details. You just need to get the feel of it. When Zephyr also with his fragrant breath hath urged to life in every holt and heath new tender shoots of green, and the young sun half of his course within the ram hath run, and little birds are making melody that sleep the whole night through with open eye, for in their hearts doth nature stir them so. Then people long on pilgrimages to go, and palmers to be seeking foreign strands, to distant shrines renowned in sundry lands. And then from every English countryside, especially to Canterbury they ride, there to the holy sainted martyr kneeling, that in their sickness sent them help and healing. Now in that season it befell one day in southward at the Tabard, as I lay ready upon my pilgrimage to start towards Canterbury, reverent of heart, there came at night into the hostelry full 29 in a company, people of all kinds that chanced to fall in fellowship, and they were pilgrims all riding to Canterbury. The stables there were ample, and the chambers large and fair, and well was all supplied us of the best. And by the time the sun had gone to rest, I knew them and had talked with every one, and so in fellowship had joined them soon, agreeing to be up and take our way where I have told you early the next day. But nonetheless, while I have space and time, before I venture further with my rhyme, It seems to me no more than reasonable that I should speak of each of them and tell their character as these appeared to me, and who they were, and what was their degree, and something likewise of their costumes right. And I will start by telling of the night. Okay, so can you understand it? Does it make sense to you? So he's saying he went to this inn. 29 other people also came to the inn. Excuse me while I order lunch. What do I want? Do you guys want to help me? Oh, the dog will like tacos. I think my dog used to be in a family that had a lot of tacos because it seems to be his favorite thing. Okay. Would you mind taking
Just because Chihuahua.
Yeah, but we don't admit he's Chihuahua and we're calling out the golden lab in him. The guy at the shelter said, I think he has a little lab. I said, he has too short of legs to have lab. He says, yeah, but there's a little corgi lab and we think maybe some Chihuahua. I said, well, I will discourage the Chihuahua. Okay, so the 29 people and the narrator have joined together and they've all talked to each other. It's a real festive social situation. And they want to all go on a pilgrimage for healing, for blessing, for spiritual reasons. And they decide they will get up in the morning together and go together. So the narrator decides he's going to join them. So there'll be 30 in this group. Some will be on horses, some will be walking. Thanks, Pepe. And he says, I want to tell you a little bit about each one of them. So another thing that's fun to watch for as you read them is what part of their physical appearance is significant. Like, why does Chaucer make a point of saying that the knight had clothing that he could see the pattern of his armor on, that his armor had been worn since he had a chance to wash the clothing? Why does he say that? Why does he talk about the habit that the nun wears, you know, the way, or her jewelry? Like, why does he focus in on these things? Like, if you were going to describe a group of people, you know, like if we all were given a job to go describe somebody, we would all come up with slightly different things we focus on, but those are significant. So there's a physical description, and the physical description partially reveals character, because you can tell a little bit about people by the way they look. Sometimes you're totally wrong. I'm talking to Pepe the other day about tattoos, and it reminded me when my youngest son moved to Austin. I just think he's so cute because he'd never been around tattoos. He's a little border boy, and he's and half of Austin is tattooed. I mean, tattoos are really big up there. And he said he found that the nicest waiters and waitresses were the most tattooed. And when he would go to cafes, he would always see, you know, who was the most tattooed, and he'd sit in their section. And I was just so intrigued by that. He kind of told me that, this gradual revelation that people with tattoos are really nice, you know. So I thought that was interesting. That yeah, okay. So this is the night. So I'm going to take it just little by little, and you know, there's 15 of these. They'll take a while. In about 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to have to write a little summary of them. So I suggest you get out your notes and kind of do it as we go along, because to go back and do it is really hard. So the way the assignment is going to be given is that you need to write about a 2 or 3 sentence summary of the character. They're really, really short. But then you also have to say, what did Chaucer think of them? So if we kind of do them together, it'll make it easier for you. Okay, so the knight. You know, so when I ask what does Chaucer think about him, you have to figure out, is he being sarcastic? So at the beginning, he says the knight is noble. So your radar should like come alive, and you should be thinking, is he really noble, or is he a bad person that Chaucer is mocking? In this case, he really is. He's one of the heroes. A knight there was, and that a noble man, who from the earliest times when he began to ride forth loved the way of chivalry, honor and faith and generosity. Okay, now that's just a very straightforward statement. Remember, chivalry is the ideal of how a knight should act. Courageous, brave, warrior, but also able to be kind and gentle. Okay, so he was noble, rode a horse, loved chivalry, was honorable, had faith, and was generous. Those are his traits. Nobly he bare himself in his lord's war. Now, lord here means like his king or his leader. This is not capitalized. And he had ridden abroad, no man so far. In many a Christian and heathen land, well honored for his worth on every hand. So this man had been in a lot of battles, a lot of wars, sometimes against other Christians, sometimes against Muslims or other pagans. Okay, so probably he was like one of the #1 knights of this time. He was a mercenary. He could be hired out, but he usually fought for the king of his fief, the one he was in allegiance to.
Maybe a crusader.
Yeah, he was a crusader, right? This is crusader stuff. He was at Alexandria when that town was won, and many times had sat him down foremost among the knights at feast in Prussia. So it's referring to a particular battle. Pay attention to the footnotes. Footnotes are your friends in Middle English. They help you a lot. So he's talking about a particular battle and then a gathering of other knights and warlords and crusaders. In Lithuanian had he fought, and Russia, no Christian more. Well was his worth attested in Spain when Algirus was invested, and at the winning of Lysis was he, and Salty and Rode and Belmarie, and at the great sea he had been at hand when many a noble host had come to land. Okay, we don't need to go over those, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce them right. It's just a list of his accomplishments. It's his, his resume. These are where I fought. I've been successful. I've been a hero in these battles. Okay, so the next part gets a little bit more interesting. Of mortal battles, he had known 15. So it means of actual wars where people died, he had been in 15 of them. So 15 times he saw people, killed, drop off their horses dead. So 15 times. And jousted for our faith. Now, do you know what jousted means? Okay, jousted is a competition. It's like boxing is a competition where you box the other person. Jousting is a competition in which two people ride their horses towards each other and they try to knock the other person off the horse.
With a lance.
With a lance, right. And then when they fall off, they might have a sword fight afterwards. If you've never seen the movie The Knight's Tale, it's really cute. It starts with a joust and kind of done to some rock music. It's a cool thing. So he had jousted for the faith, means he had competed. He had said, I'm going to stand in for my king, my Lord, and if I win, then we win. So it's kind of like he was a champion, so like a David and Goliath situation. And then 3 times, thrice in the list. The list is the actual boundaries of the joust. The list means the wall around him. And always slain his foe. So every time he jousted, every time he was in the fenced area, he won. He was never defeated. And he had been in Turkey years ago, lending the principality his sword in war against another heathen lord. And that means he had done some mercenary work. He had been hired to go fight for probably a friend of his king, also successfully. And everywhere he went, his fame was high. So after every battle, people got together and talked and said, did you see that knight? Wow, he was amazing. He was 100% successful. He's powerful. He's courageous. He's sort of a Beowulf, he's amazing. And though renowned, though famous, he bore him prudently. So prudently here means like humbly, like he wasn't a braggart. Like when he went to the inns afterwards and everyone was drinking and talking about the battle, he wasn't standing up on a table like, did you see me? I was the best. He was a humble man. He was doing his job, and he didn't expect glory for it. The word meek also means humble. It means gentle. It's usually used for children and puppies and girls. And Jesus. Meek was he in his manner as a maid. So he seemed as gentle as a maiden is like a young girl. So he had that sort of gentleness. He wasn't loud. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't a bully. In all his life, to no man had he said a word but what was courteous and right. He was a very perfect and noble knight. So the thing is, he'd never cursed anybody out. He had never insulted anybody. No one had a story of him being abusive. He always guarded his words. He was always respectful. Now, can you get any hint of sarcasm here? Is there anything being said that you think, yeah, but he secretly? No, you see what you get with the knight. It's exactly as he's described. But now to tell you what array he had, array means now to tell you about his clothing. His steeds were his horses, were good. He had really, really good war horses. There's no horses powerful and impressive as a war horse. It's like an Arabian stallion, or one of those, what are the Budweiser beer horses called? What are they? Yeah, they're so beautiful. So his horse was impressive. Okay, but it says he was plainly dressed in fustian, which means a plain cloth made out of cotton and flax, doublet, which is the top part. He was dressed, discolored where his coat of mail had pressed. For he was lately come from his voyage and went at once to do his pilgrimage. So this is the significance of that. The knight would wear metal armor over cotton clothing. And then when they took off their armor, you could still see the different parts, whether it was chain mail, then you could see the little design, or if it was big plates of iron, then you could see where they were impressed. But then when you took off your undershirt and washed it, that would wash out, like wrinkles wash out. So Chaucer is saying, I noticed that he had taken off his armor and come right on a pilgrimage. So he had immediately gone. So I think this is what it means. Like it says, he got off the boat, he came back to England, he got off the boat and he started walking, or riding his horse to the inn to go on this pilgrimage. So one of the things soldiers would do is they would go on a pilgrimage after a battle so they could get forgiveness, penance, if they had killed somebody who maybe was a Christian. If they'd killed a Muslim, they didn't ask for forgiveness. But if someone had died at their hand who might have been a Christian, they would ask for forgiveness. So the nobility of this man is he's not casual about the people he has killed. He wants to go and pray for their souls. He wants to go pray for forgiveness. He takes it seriously. So in writing about this man, I would say he was a powerful warrior with a great war horse, and his clothing showed the signs of recently removed armor, and that he was famous as a victorious fighter, both in competitions and in 15 wars, and that he was noble and kind and respected. And then I'd say, and Chaucer admired him. Okay, so that's what a summary would look like. Okay, we're going to do one more, and it's his son. And what's neat about the father and son together is the father represents a medieval warrior, and the son represents the developing masculinity of the Renaissance. You know, he's an artist, he's a poet, he sings and dances, he likes things fancy and pretty, and he sort of represents the coming age. So there's this generational difference, but the son loves his father, and there's real honor between them. So a squire is the person who helps a knight. He's the knight's assistant. And if at all possible, a knight would want his son to be his squire. Otherwise, he might hire someone from the fight. Okay, so we'll read the squire and then we'll be done. With him there went a squire that was his son, a lover and a soldier, full of life and fun, with locks tight curled as if just out of press. His age in years was 20, I should guess. So do you know what a curling iron is? Okay, curling iron, I put one in my hair here and here every morning because my hair is fuzzy. It kind of makes it go back a little bit. So one of the things people do with curling irons is they wrap their hair around it and then they get ringlets. So this guy had long blonde hair and was in ringlets. And the narrator is saying it looked like he'd used a curling iron. Now, maybe he had it, maybe he hadn't. Probably he hadn't. But it's not like he wouldn't have. You know, he was like a metro guy, you know, like he wanted to look nice. You know, it's very possible he was kind of making his hair pretty, which is totally different than his dad. You know, that's this difference. About 20 years old, love, he's a man of fun, he was joyous, he was the life of the party. In stature, he appeared of middle height and great of strength and wondrous quick and light. So he was light on his feet. He wasn't like his father who was kind of hulking, you know, this guy could kind of dance around. And he had gone campaigning recently in Flanders and Artois and Picardy, and in this short space bore a gallant part, hoping for favor in his lady's heart. So he had also been in battle with his dad. The last 3 battles he had been involved, and his reason for fighting was to impress the girls. Like he would come back from a fight and say, oh, yeah, my dad and I, you know, we were out in the middle of it and I killed, you know, 6 of the enemy and I got wounded, but I'm better now. And like he would tell the stories because he wanted the girls to say, oh, my hero, kind of like in my art, you know, the Renaissance, more Renaissance style art. Okay, so he was hoping that it would impress. And it says in his ladies. So it sounds like there's already somebody he's especially wanting to impress. It's his lady. Okay. His raiments shone or were bright as if they were a mead. A mead is like a flower garden, embroidered with flowers fresh and white and red. So his dad is wearing this real plain kind of sackcloth stuff. And the boy is wearing a beautiful white shirt that's embroidered with flowers around the edge. Especially made, kind of like, what are the shirts called in Mexico that have the, well, like the men's shirts that have the little pleats, you know? Yeah, Guayabera, is that it? Yeah, like those are really beautiful. Like the father would not wear something like that. The son would think, oh my goodness, so shiny and pretty, and can I get one with more color, you know? So that reveals something about what they appreciate. Okay, singing or fluting was he all the day. So as a dad is walking along or riding along, he's probably, you know, not making much noise, you know, he's just concentrating. But his boy has a little flute, probably a wood flute, and is singing. He was as lusty as the month of May. Now look down, lusty means joyful. It's like the word gay has changed, the way lusty has changed. He was a happy guy. Short was his gown, so his shirt was shorter than most, with sleeves both long and wide. They were big, buff, bellowing sleeves. Well could he sit a horse and fairly ride. He could make songs and prettily indite and joust and dance as well and draw and write. So indite means compose. Okay, so this guy was talented. Not only was he good on a horse, and he had fought bravely and proven himself, but he also could sing and dance and compete and draw and write and wear pretty clothes. And So he's just got all these gifts and talents. He's very modern compared to his dad. Okay, so then the last 4 lines are really the most significant. It says, so fierce at night did love his heart assail, he slept no more than doth a nightingale. So nightingales are birds that sing at night. Okay, so this guy, when he would go to bed at night, fire died down, they have eaten, and they're probably sleeping under some kind of cart or out under the trees. His dad, would cross his arm and go to sleep. And the boy would be like, la, 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 la. They go, oh, when I'm going to see her again, wonder for the next town I should get a new shirt, oh, I just thought of a beautiful, tune for the words that I'm writing, and he would just be thinking, and just planning. And he was just very, very distracted. But I think in kind of a sweet way. Yeah, but it was hard for him to sleep because he had so much going on. Okay, and then the last 2 lines says, courteous he was. Courteous means he was well behaved, humble, willing, and able, and carved before his father at the table. So what that means is when they sat down to eat, the boy would set up some kind of platform or table for his dad. He would slice his meat for him. He would cut his apple open. He would, maybe put some oil on the potatoes. Like he would fix his father's plate and serve him, and then he would eat. So he took his responsibility being a squire seriously, even though it was dad, but he was responsible and he was in training and this was his job and it wasn't below him to do it. They had another man traveling with him, the yeoman, and he could have said, well, you fix my dad and me some food. But he didn't. He considered it an honorable thing. So again, describing him, long curly hair, light weight, middle height, 20, in fancy, colorful clothing. And his character was, he was both a warrior, but he was also an artist, a singer, a dancer, loved the things of beauty and art, but he was honorable to his dad. And couldn't sleep well at night because he was thinking about the girls. And did Chaucer like him? Yes, I think Chaucer liked him. I don't think he's being sarcastic or bitter or critical here. Okay, so the next few days, we're going to do 3 or 4 of these a day. So just try to keep them straight. And then when we do the first tale, you will see what I mean about it being a greater revelation of the people. So I want you to come and get to say hello. Hey, so everyone who's online, show yourself and say hello to your classmates. So can y'all see? Anyone want to say anything? And then I will help you in a little bit as I go to class. So there's Mr. Eric, Mr. Sam, you see. Are they showing themselves? You want to, Danielle, yeah. Come on, Lori. Come on, Arlen. They're probably all in their pajamas. Not everyone's in bed.
Hi. Do you want me to show my face?
Yes.
They will be scary because of my face.
Oh, you silly girl. Ah, there she is. Yeah.
Hi.
Hermosa.
How are you?
Hermosa. Yeah, so see, you could come and sit way, way over in that corner over there and social distance and be in school, everybody. Big classroom. Diego's not here today. Did you hear about his grandma?
Yeah, he told
Yeah.
me yesterday.
Yeah, so we've been praying for him. So, Arlen, can we see you too?
We see the roof now.
Ah,
Hi, Daniel.
so guys, you got
I haven't showered.
what?
I mean, I just woke up, so I haven't
Oh.
showered.
You lazy
okay. I
boy.
haven't
How are you going to start your life if you just stay in bed?
I was doing work late yesterday, that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Come-
That's what Eric does every night, and that's why he's sleepy in class. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll believe you were doing work. We don't always believe such stories.
Who's the one behind Eric?
That's Mr. Sam.
Oh, Sam, the chocolate boy.
He's not the chocolate boy this year.
Oh.
You gotta let people's reputation evolve. Okay, so guys, you can go ahead to Mr. Hodges' class. You've got about 4 or 5 extra minutes. You can say goodbye as you go by. If you have anything to hand in.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guys, stay on and I'll help you some more.
You're what? Bye.
Take care.
You too.
So you want me to anything?
Why don't you keep it till next week? Yeah, if you have things that are not good. But what are you saying? Yeah, turn in everything I have to grade, but hold on to your, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, yes.
With me in the folder, I just have the vocabulary and the conversion in the Bible and the conversation.
Okay. Well, give me the stuff that has not been graded, but hold on to your folder because we're going to work on it next week together. Yeah, but give me your ungraded stuff. Don't dominate, Lala.
Can I send you the
Yeah, put your name on it. Yes, put your name on this one too.
I have the dial.
Okay, put your name on it though.
Oh,
I
yes.
keep getting unnamed things.
¿No te vas a cansar, Lalo?
No. Lorena, me hace falta.
Tú no necesitas a nadie para ser feliz.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, so you all signed up for lunch? Yes, okay.
I haven't.
It's done now, Lala. Very fast. Bye-bye. Okay, so I've got Lori and Arlen and Anna Karenina and Danny. Okay, so I have a half an hour now. How can I help you guys? Bible or English? Just give me some questions.
Okay.
And I'll,
Right now, I was checking by lead class in Google Classroom,
okay.
and when I wanted to enter like 3, I wanted to enter to BD part 2, and it's gone. I don't know if there was supposed to be a video over there, but there's nothing. And also, it happens the same thing in report instructions and BD reading. There's nothing in the documents.
Okay, I asked Mr. Kriegel to post some videos with those 2 sections, and he posted them, he said, in a different place. Like, is it under material? Is that one of the options? He said, I like to post it this way. And I said, I don't care how you post it, just post it, you know. So if you can't find it, would you send an email to him? Because when I try to do it, I always just put it right in the middle of what I'm writing. Like, here's a link to it. But I think he sent it someplace that, you know, like a parallel folder.
You know.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Did you get the one I sent yesterday? Were you able to open that one, the one I did from home?
English summary?
Yes, the summary.
With the video, yes.
Okay, that one.
I haven't gotten it yet. I have to check that later.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Go ahead and check it. And, you know, it's been crazy hard trying to send you guys videos. Like, this is the very first one that I have used Zoom for during class. If it works, this would be ideal. I could arrange the class so that I, you know, do all of the one-on-one stuff the first hour, then for the second hour, any of the like general readings and explanations, because I have the kids in here 2 hours with a lot of basketball playing in between. So, but were you able to follow okay what I was saying today? Was it clear enough and loud enough and everything? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got the extra point thing, so I'm gonna, you know, write down and note down everything I can.
Okay.
I didn't know about it. I'll do that.
Okay, so when I started this right at 9:30, I pushed record, and according to Mr. Kriegel, if you go back to this link later, you will go to this recording. So then if there's something you didn't understand, or if somebody who didn't join us wants to see it, they can do that. So I will try next week, probably on Thursday. I'm going to spend a lot of time helping the students put together their folders, especially in English. So I'll send you the link the night before if there is like a 20 to 60-minute period where I'll just be summarizing for them. So in Bible, you don't really have much to worry about. If you're doing the chapel reports and the chapter summaries, and then I think I've sent home now 3 quizzes, but I'm letting them all be open book. One was on chapels, one was on John 14, and then the one I posted yesterday. And so if you have kept up on that, that shouldn't be hard. The last chapel will be Ryan de la Garza on Tuesday. So if you can't give me your folder, you just won't have that grade. If you can, like if you come in, like let's say next Friday or next Monday or sometime and do British literature, I'll give you back all your Bible stuff. You put it in a folder and you get bonus points for it. But otherwise, you know, it's not a huge, big deal. Like, let's you get a 95 in Bible and you could have gotten a 97 with your folder. Well, next term, you know, just get a 99 and it'll average out the same. You know, anything you didn't get the bonus points for first term, I will just let you add them onto whenever you're back and are able to do the things like folders and corrections. I know it's very hard to do corrections when you aren't able to get the papers right back. But I've graded everything now except what came in yesterday, which I will do right now. So I have it here, and hopefully you can pick it up sometime before too long. So, and you know, let's say there's something that just you can't come in and you can't finish it. You know, we're real flexible about this. You know, I just want to be sure you all earn your 6 half credits first semester. That's the main thing, is like you guys are all working towards a transcript that will open college doors for you, and you know, you just want to finish it up. So I know last year there was a lot of, well, we can't go back and change grades. Well, we can. I just don't want you to have a monster pile of stuff to do before you get your diploma. So, you know, I'm just doing everything I can to help you stay caught up. But, yeah. So, Daniel, does your computer have spell check?
I have grammar. What was it called? It's called I forgot, but it helps you with your grammar, and when you write down, kind of corrects, you know,
Let me give you some advice. When you are working on something, if it's underlined in red or blue, fix it. Fix
All right.
it. Like I'll get things from you and there'll be like 30 things underlined, and I thought all you have to do is click on them and then you get 100 rather than -10 for spelling, you know. So this is senior English. You want to be sure you're handing in things in paragraphs, correct sentences, spell checked. You know, I want during this year to be confident that your writing, reading skills are ready for English 101 next year. You know, it'll just be all essays and dialogues and stuff like that. So every assignment I give you, there's an ulterior motive of this is something they will need to be good at next year. So start really working on the grammar check before you hand it in, okay? I don't take off spelling and grammar for any other class, just British literature, because it's your last chance to get brilliant before university. So, hey, Anna Karenina, do you have any questions?
Yes. When is the report due?
As long as I have everything by next Thursday and can give you a grade, it's fine. The kids who are here, most of them have already turned it in, but I don't mind with next weekend just grading a lot of late stuff. But I'm supposed to turn in my grades to Mr. Kriegel the following Tuesday. So if I don't get it till Monday night, a week from Monday, I just won't be able to get it all done. So the last day of the first 6 weeks is next Thursday. Grades will go out the following. So, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep up with this no reduction of your grade for late work next term. There's a lot of things which kind of voting on as every 3 weeks go by. I meet with the teachers and I meet with the students during chapel and say, okay, how's it working to keep your phones? Okay, how do you like not having bell? Okay, how do you like this? You know, we're just sort of taking it real slowly, but it's really fun to, I mean, it's been real fun having things so casual. I know it wouldn't work with 30 kids, but it works really good with 9 or 10. So we're enjoying kind of being more homeschoolish. So yeah, so just be sure everything on the list for Bible and for British literature, you send it in when you finish, but your deadline is next Thursday. You've got a full week. And what I will do is I will grade everything I get in by Tuesday, and I will repost the grades and maybe even send you personal notes saying, okay, I'm still missing, you know, the senior chapel, or I'm still missing this or that. But it's easier for me to just post everything and have you try to figure it out. Arland, any questions?
No.
Good. Any of the classes you're having trouble with, are you able to keep up on all of them?
I'm just having difficulty with British literature, that's all.
Yeah. Well, British literature is always the hardest class. You know, there's some kids who have trouble with physics and, you know, the higher maths, but most seniors, British literature is their hardest class. And it's just because it's such a difficult vocabulary. And, you know, when I teach the class, I'm able to like reword everything as we go along. When you're trying to do it at home, it's going to be hard because it's, you know, almost every fifth word is like, what? You know, it's like doing in a foreign language sometimes. So feel free also, I'm always glad to make a little Zoom call for just 1 or 2 people and like read something or explain it. Like, you know, the 2 ballads, we spent the whole hour yesterday talking about them and studying them. But some of those things, like the hard part of your next test will be the multiple choice because it asks specific questions from the reading. The 6-week test is just me saying, you know, why are the Crusades important? Or how did the murder of Thomas Becket affect England? Or how did the Plantagenet dynasty start? Like they're more general questions, they're not as specific. So, yeah. So the history is important. Usually by this time I have shown 3 movies. There's 3 movies I show at the beginning of the medieval time. And I haven't figured out if I'm going to, like maybe they're on YouTube, maybe I can make them a 2-day homework assignment. I kind of hate doing it because when I show them, there's 2 or 3 little parts I leave out that are kind of vulgar. And I hate to just send a link because I think, what if their mama is looking over their shoulder right when that bad word is said? But I just have to get over it, you know. I can't control such things. But I will decide within the next few days which ones are available, worth seeing. So, like one is called Ivanhoe, and it's just real rich with chivalry and knights and love, and it's real fun. But when I only have the kids for 3 days, I just don't want to spend time watching movies when they need so much one-on-one. So, anything else?
I sent you all my work from British literature from the 3 weeks. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything because I went to your class online and checked if there's any missing work, and there's nothing from the 3 weeks. And I was a little bit confused. I was like, wait, what? And I'm not sure if I'm even missing something or I've already turned in everything because I went with.
As of yesterday, you had nothing. You turned in nothing.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you have to be sure you're turning it in. Now, I usually record my grades every day or every other day at the latest. So by this afternoon, I will have recorded everything I got last night. So yeah, sometimes because my printer is so expensive, it's $58 every time I replace the ink, which I'm doing every 2 weeks right now. Sometimes I'll wait until I get to school to print them just because I want to print them so I can make comments so you can get correction points. And so I can help sharpen your style of writing because that's hugely important during this year. So that's why I don't always grade them at night. So
At least you have a printer that works, miss. Mine broke down and the ink is like melting down from my printer. And I'm not sure if it's still working. I have to, plug it in and check if it's still working, but it's all of the ink that it has inside is like dripping out.
yeah, printers, it's always a mixed bag. Like you can get this printer over at Best Buy and it's $48 and it's great. The quality is great, but the ink is so expensive. And they just start out with enough ink to last about 2 weeks. So that's what I got. It's Epson, I think it's called. So the problem is if every few weeks you're spending $58, it's sort of like, I wish I'd bought a more expensive one with cheaper ink, but anyhow, I know printing is a frustration. And if you go to any of the stores that print, it's pretty expensive per page, so. No, I don't mind printing it for you. That's not the problem. I just often wait till I come over in the morning.
It's okay, miss. I don't need anything print right now. I think this one can work, but I just have to have like a time with it, like, work it out and see if it still functions. If not, I have to go myself or go to YouTube and check if, if there's a way to fix this. So
yeah, I thought mine was wrecked and my son found a paper clip stuck down inside of it and I got another stretch of time using it, so I was glad. So do you all understand the Anglo-Saxon report assignment? Do you realize that the assignment is how well you use the MLA format?
yeah.
That's just as important. So you've got to follow the format.
Miss Hansen.
Yes.
Yes, on that one I had like a question, but I think Allison answered me because I didn't know if it was like 3 pages, like one of each. Like the first, it was the history, and then the second was like the stories, and then the third was like the Old English.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, don't make it over 3 pages. But then she said that the first page can be the one that we already did of the history.
Right. If your history got a good grade, I get to hand them back to the kids here with suggestions, and that's the problem is you can't see what I improved on them, but we'd already done the history summary. I think yours was fine if I remember right. So yes, you just take that and that should be about a page long, maybe a little less, a little more. And then just a couple sentences each on the Seafarer, Beowulf, and the Venerable Bede. Just 2 or 3 sentences summaries. And then just a few sentences on page 23, 24 about Old English. And you don't divide the different pieces of literature, the different kings, into separate paragraphs. It's a single paragraph. So a paragraph of history, the first 8 pages, a paragraph of the 3 major literary contributions of that age, and then a paragraph on Old English and the languages that influence it, like Celtic, Old Norse, Roman, and Germanic. How they merge together.
How long, maybe how many pages?
It should not go over 3. If you go over 3 grades, I take points off. So between 2 and 2.5 is ideal. Because the focus of this assignment is, can you read bulk of information and reduce it down without quotations into very simple personal language? Like that's what I'm testing you for, is, how well you can edit down and summarize. It's an important skill. It's really important. There are careers you might end up with that if you don't know how to take a mass of information and bring it down, you'll just really be disabled with what you need to do. So, we do 8 of these during the year, and by the time you finish the 8th one, you can do it in your sleep. You really have it down, but it's hard to learn. And sometimes I require you to use quotes, but this one I want you to do without quotes. So each one, the requirements change a little bit. That answer So anything else you guys can think of that could help you?
Today you say we needed to make notes of the lecture you were reading.
No, not my lecture. What your notes are is from page 25 to 34, which is the medieval period. And then page 35 is that little summary of what is a ballad. You can put that down to 2 or 3 sentences. And then I want you to write on Chaucer, those 3 pages of his biography. Now, since your next major assignment, which won't be due for 2 weeks, is going to be a summary of the 15 characters, I suggest as you read them, you jot things down. Now, this doesn't have to be sentences. Your notes can be bullet points. They can be phrases. You're just putting information. But since you have to write a report eventually, if you want to start summarizing it in sentences, it saves you a step. But you want to get the main facts. And in the history, you always want to do it chronologically. You start with the Battle of Hastings, and you chronologically bring it to the end of the War of Roses when the Tudor dynasty starts. So sometimes the book doesn't do it that way, but that's what I'm looking for, is can you read it? So usually those historical charts, like I think one is on page 5 for the Anglo-Saxons, I think it's page 19 for the medieval age. They're good because they give everything to you chronologically. So never mention writers or language in the history. Sometimes they give you a little, introduction, like we will be reading about Chaucer. They'll say it in the history. Don't put it in the history. Just skip over that. The history is just for wars and kings and cultural changes. The next part is just authors and writings. Don't mention that French influenced the language until you get to the last paragraph. See, it's kind of like what I'm asking you to do is prepare what you would teach 4th graders if you were going to teach them about English literature. If I went to jail and I was asked to teach a class on British literature, it's that level. Like if you're trying to summarize for someone who just wants an overview. I've often thought if I ever got arrested, I would teach a class on British literature because I have it all memorized. I could do it without a book. So, it'll be fun. Okay, so do you want to schedule another class or do you want to just message me and say, hey, can we talk Monday again, or can we have a question and answer on Tuesday afternoon? I'm really very free in the afternoons. I know some of you are in Mr. Kriegel's or Mr. Neon's classes, but except on Wednesday when I have a prayer meeting. Monday I have a meeting with the prayer group, a different prayer group, but usually evenings I'm always free, and Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday I'm free in the afternoons too. So send me a couple options, and if there's other people who want to join on, just let me know and I'll set it up.
If it's not much trouble for you, if this class was really nice, it was important, right? That's why you make the call.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if in classes that that there's going a lot to be covered, it would be nice if you could
Does this work okay for you?
make a call so
Okay.
we can join.
Okay, so what I will do is probably not do it for Bible for 2 reasons. 1, most of you aren't up. And 2, because I think with all the great online options, you can really understand. Like this guy here, the Skip Herzig, I think his name is. I have it on the board. His messages over these chapters are good. I listened to John 17 this morning and I thought, oh my goodness, he's covering almost everything I planned to say. So I think with Bible, we'll be okay. I told the kids today that at our board meeting Wednesday, Mr. Bernard said he's going to be doing this food distribution until the end of the year. So he doesn't think he's going to get to come teach the class as he has for the last decade. So I'm going to try to get him to skip one day and do a chapel, but that leaves it open in terms of the Bible class. Like if there's something you would really like to study or someone you would like to have teach. I had made 2 suggestions to the kids and they were just kind of off the top of my head, especially when more of you can come back. The pastor next door has taught a lot of classes for me on Christian counseling and inner healing, and it's good. The kids who've taken it have really benefited. There's 2 methods, one called Sozo, which is inner healing, and the other one is from Elijah House Ministries. Both of them I've studied, and it's good. So that's kind of in the back of my mind, and then hopefully second semester, Miranda Rule will teach her dual enrollment college class, which I think some of you have already taken, so we'll have to have an option. The other thing is someone had mentioned to me world religions class, that they really don't know the difference between, Buddhism and Hinduism, or what do Muslims really believe, and sort of an overview of world religions. And if there was time, even doing one on major denominations. That's hard because I haven't taught it for a few years. I'd have to kind of research it again, but or if there's just anything, I always prefer the scriptures. I've taught a couple classes on spiritual warfare, the supernatural, the demonic realm, miracles. I've been studying a lot about eternity, what the Bible teaches about heaven. So there are some things that I would enjoy teaching, but, or I could switch with Miss Rubio. She has the juniors 2 hours and I have the seniors. So one of the 6 weeks we could switch and she could teach you something. So don't think, oh, I don't want to hurt Mrs. Hanson's feelings and say anyone but you. Don't think that. Like give me some honest things you would like to study. In second semester, hopefully we'll still do our electives and have some more options. But if you come up with a good idea, I'll pass it out on an email for a vote. And yeah, Daniel.
What about demonology?
Yeah, when I said spiritual warfare, I mean demonology, right?
Oh,
yeah, and it's something I've been studying a lot right now.
same.
So I'm very interested in it, and I think I have a little bit of knowledge about it because I've been involved in some exorcisms, and it's something I know some about. Yeah, so I'm really open to it, and whether something is a 6 weeks or whether it's 3 weeks, whether we get someone else to do some seminars, but just give me some options, what you would like to know before you head off to university and, start your independent adult lives, so. Yeah. So, anything else?
When does the second term begins?
It'll begin let's see, so today is the 10th. So
Yes.
this first term ends on the 17th or 18th. So the 22nd, the first day of autumn, is the first day of second term. And what I'm hoping, as soon as about half of the students can come back, I'm hoping to add Friday onto our schedule. So we're going to have this first 6 weeks is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm hoping sometime in September, October, we'll go Tuesday through Friday. And then, at the very latest, late October, I'm hoping we can all be back. I'm not going to ask the teachers to work as hard trying to send everything home after October. It's a lot for them to do. I think they're getting kind of good at it, but it's just, you guys are missing out on a lot. I realize 70% of the stuff going on at school is done when there's no camera going. But if this works for you, the reason I hadn't wanted to do it is just I don't like carrying my computer around, but I'll do it. Anytime I foresee let's just say Tuesday, since I'm going to be teaching on the Canterbury characters, and since it really helps to have them read to you, I will plan a 9:30 Tuesday. and we'll do maybe 4 more characters, and that'll give you a little heads up on those. So they get interesting. Some of the people are really characters. The first 2 are, you know, good people and, you know, pretty straightforward, but some of the weasels, it's really fun to hear Chaucer get after them. You know, to think someone who wrote, you know, like over 600 years ago, you know, has some of the same humor. A lot of our idea of humor, at least in English, I don't know about the Spanish tradition, but a lot of our sarcastic humor is rooted in Chaucer. He's even been called the father of modern humor. You know, he's the father of everything. He's just amazing. So satire is very Chaucer. So, okay, anything else?
Yeah, I'm fine for now.
Okay, so unless you want to join for prayer Monday at 3, no, that's when I talked to Olivia at 4:15, Monday at 4:15, and then Tuesday at 9:30. I'll set up both Zooms, and just feel free to message me if you have any particular questions.
All right.
And I think this is all recorded. If you want to go back and listen to the first part, feel free. I don't know how long it'll stay up, but I'll let the other kids know too. Okay, love you guys, miss you, come soon. It's a beautiful day. I hope you go outside. Go outside. We went outside before school and prayed together, and it just started sprinkling and there was a rainbow. It was really fun. So
Nice.
go out. Okay, bye.